Hello, in this video we'll be making a simple password generator in Jetpack Compose. So basically the user could be able to generate a password by selecting the properties, click on generate and they can see the password here. And they can also change the size of the password like so, and even add some custom characters. So I'm gonna add these 3 characters here, check that, and you can see it really incorporated in the generated password. The user could copy as well, and they can see it being saved in the clipboard. There you go. Alright, so let's make that. And right here I have a new Jetpack Compose project with the default main activity. First thing would be to create our password generator activity. So let's go activity, empty views activity, and here password generator activity. We don't need a layout, and let's make this a launcher activity so it starts first. So finish. Here let's change this to component activity. We don't need app compat. And inside here we're gonna call set content, and here we're gonna call our method password generator or password gen, and we're gonna create this as a composable here, composable function, and inside here we're just gonna use a text for now. Add a preview. I'm just gonna copy it from here, so I'm gonna paste that and call this inside here password gen preview. Let's split it to see the results, and I'm also going to add some other properties like the device, access one, and show system UI, and let's build that to see the results. Alright, there you go. So here for the password generator, let's start setting up this, but first I'm going to add some strings to my strings.xml file. So here values, strings. I'm going to need these later on in the application. It's what the text are displayed in the application. So this generate password, the copy, generate, and all the text that are static in the application. I defined them here. And back to our password generator, let's start coding the interface. So basically we're gonna need to start with a surface. I'm gonna remove this surface, and inside that I'm gonna add a column. So column here, and I'm going to start with a text, which is for the title. So string resource string dot generate password, like this. This is the string that we just added. And also add a modifier. So modifier equals to modifier dot align, and here we're gonna center horizontally the text. So I'm gonna add this horizontally, import that as well, and then we're gonna add a style. So here style equals to material theme typography, and I'm gonna add headline small. Alright, let's just customize this column here to center everything in the middle, but first let's see the preview. It's taking some time, but there you go. Now let's center everything. So modifier equals to modifier.fill max size, and then padding horizontal. Let's give it 10 dp padding. This is modifier, and also add a vertical arrangement. So center everything. This should center everything out. That's good. Now let's create a spacer. And then modifier dot height. Give it 10 dp. Then the next step would be another column that would contain the checkboxes that we have defined. So here, column, and we'll give some properties to this column as well. For example, vertical arrangement, vertical arrangement center. All right, and inside this column, we're gonna have the row that would contain the generated password and the copy button. So here, row, and inside these, we're going to add vertical alignment. So center vertically, and also horizontal arrangement is set to center. Inside this row, we're gonna have our text view that would display the text. So here, let's set up the text to be generated password. We're gonna need this variable. So here, var generated password by remember, and here mutable state of, and we can set it to an empty string. Let's import everything. Import, and again import. Now we have our generated password. Basically, in this scenario, we are either going to show the generated password or only show the click on generate button. So here, if empty, we're going to show string resource error.string dot click on generate. So basically here, if the generated password is empty, so it's an empty string, it's going to show generate, click on generate. All right, the next thing, we can add other properties here. Modifier equals to modifier dot weight. Basically, this is to take the majority of the screen and leave the rest for the button. So here we're going to add a spacer, modifier width, and let's give it 5 dp. And at the end, we're gonna have our button. So a button here. All right. So basically, this button would be to copy the message. Inside here, we're gonna have a text, string resource string dot copy. All right. So you can see here that the text is taking the weight 1, which is whatever is left from the button. And we can also change some properties of the button. For example, enabled equals to generated password is not empty. And also add the property shape for rounded corner shape, 5 dp. This is just basically for some styling, and here the button will be disabled because the generated password is an empty string. All right, now we can move on to the checkboxes. So let's shorten this and add a spacer. All right, so the spacer modifier dot height, give it 10 dp, and then labeled checkbox. This is going to be the checkboxes that we have defined. So we have seen in the application itself. I'm gonna have to define them here as composable function. Gonna add properties as we go, and basically they're going to have a row that would contain the checkbox, and also it will contain a text. So for the text, we're gonna need a label. So here text equals a label. gonna pass that as a parameter. So label is a string. And we're also going to need an onClick or onCheck change, which would reflect on the change of the button. So what's happened when the user clicks on the entire row to check or uncheck the checkbox. And we're also going to need another property is checked, which is a boolean, to pass as a parameter to this. And for the uncheck change here, we're going to set it to null because we want the user to click on the row itself to trigger the check change. Here modifier equals to modifier dot clickable, and on click we are going to define the onCheck change. Alright, that seems about it. We can add some other properties for the row. For example, add fill max width, and also add some sort of padding. So padding vertical, let's give it 5 dp so that the labeled checkboxes are spaced. So can add another one here, and for the properties, label equals to string resource string dot uppercase. Alright, and for the onClick, I'm going to set it to this. onClick on check change, sorry, is this, and selected or is checked equals to false. Alright, let's duplicate this, and here this is lower case, and let's duplicate this again, and is numeric or numeric by itself. Alright, so you can see them right here. Now the thing that we need to do is the click on check change and the check. We need to use some variables, so let's define them up here. Is uppercase, or it just is upper is enough, and here it's going to be true. We want that as default, and is lower than is numeric. We want to use false. Let's call these variables right down here. So this is upper, is lower, and here is numeric. For the check change, we're going to update this, so is upper equals this. Gonna do the same for is lower. So let's change these like this and do the same for is numeric. Alright, there you go. Now we need to add the custom checkbox. It's going to be basically an editable checkbox. So I'm going to duplicate this editable checkbox. It's going to be mostly the same, but in this case we're not going to have a text. We are going to have a text field to allow the user to enter some properties. So text field. Now to pass these parameters right here. The checked is going to be the same. For the text field, we're going to have a value instead of label. And for the on change of the value, we need to pass that as a parameter. So on value change. So let's pass that here. Is string unit, and then let's opt in. Alright, that looks about good. Now what we can do is change, see if we can change some other properties in this case. Not really, so let's copy this and make a call here. For the value, we're going to need an actual value. In this case, I'm just going to use these two. And on check change is custom. I'm gonna call is custom, so it's a new variable that I'm going to define in a bit. And then is checked is going to be is custom, and the last parameter is on click, or it's on value changed. On value changed. Here we're gonna have a method. Gonna define it a bit. Go back up. Let's duplicate those for is custom, and it's going to be set to false. So here we're going to have like a custom string that would cover the value of this text field. We can define it in a bit, but first let's center this text field right here. Alright, we can do that by adding a property in the row itself. So vertical alignment, center vertically. We should fix it. Alright, that's good. And let's see. Now that seems to be right. Let's add the password size. Here, password size. Let's define this element here. Basically, it's going to be a row as well. And inside of it, we're going to have a text field. Let me just check something out. Alright, so inside of it, it's going to be a text field that has the text equals to string resource string dot password size, and also a modifier goes to modifier the fire dot weight. Let's give it a weight of 1. And in the other side, we're going to have a text field again that would host the actual password size that we need to pass as a parameter string, and also on value change, pass it here. Let's opt in again. And we might need to change some other properties in the text field so that we allow the user to only see a numeric keyboard, for example. So keyboard options equals to keyboard options dot default, and we're going to copy that, and keyboard type is going to be keyboard type dot number. And then we're going to add a placeholder text, and here basically we're going to limit the size of the number that the user enters. We don't want to have a huge password. We can limit it to 200 or 100, whatever you want. We can set the logic in the on value change in a bit. And let's add some properties to this row here. Modifier equals to modifier dot fill max width, and then vertical alignment, center vertically. Alright, now let's add the necessary properties here. Password size, and for the on change value, I'm going to add this method here. Password size equal. Alright, password size equals password size. Let's define this right here. This is going to be password size for, by default, so I'm gonna set it to 8. And back to on value change. The first thing we're going to do is check if yeah, the UI here looks a bit messed up. You can change that by adding the weight here as well for the text fields. That should give them half of the row. Alright, that looks good. Let's go back up, and for the password size we are basically going to change or the check if the password size is not empty. So here, if password size is not empty, then we're going to check password size dot to int is less than 200. If that's the case, the password size equals to it, to int. Alright, so if the password size is not empty and it's less than 200, we're gonna set it here. But if that's not the case, it's not going to be set. And we'll might need to change the editable checkbox here by adding a new field here, custom password setting. Here I'm gonna set it to these characters for now, and at the bottom let's set this one here. And in this case it's going to be a little bit tricky because this can be set to checked and the text value could be empty. So here, if the custom password setting is empty, basically what we're going to do here is set is custom to false, so that it unchecks the checkbox, and then we can set this equals to it. Alright, that looks good. Now let's run the application, see how that looks like. It's taking some time. There you go. Alright, so here's our application. When we check, they get checked or unchecked, which is good. Let's check our logic here. Let's erase those. Alright, so here the password setting is, yep, in our code we might have made a little mistake. Let's fix that here. We should check it here because that's the actual input. Alright, back to our application. Let's run that again. Okay, so here I'm going to check this and let's erase those, and you can see that the text field is unchecked, and we can add new values and check it back. Alright, now that looks good, and here you can see the field. We can write longer strings, and that's also because we're not checking in our text here for the password size. We need to check it or the actual value. Alright, let's run our application again, see how that looks like. Alright, there you go. So gonna add this, we can check those all. Let's check this button, erase everything, you can see it disappear, and check these again. For the number, I'm going to add some values. I can see them, it's not working. I'm going to add 198. Alright, there you go. And I can still check that, add some characters here, uncheck it. If I close these, that's getting unchecked. And just to fix the fact that we can check it as it's empty, let's go back to our code and go to this editable checkbox, and here we're gonna have to check if this is not empty, then we can change that. So this should be able to resolve our problem of checking the box when the field is empty. So let's go back to our virtual device, clear that, and you see we can't actually check the button even if we click. We need to have at least one character to be able to check that. So that's good. Now we need to add one more thing, which is the generate button, and we'll be good to go. Basically, let's go and add a spacer here. So spacer, I'll just copy it from here, paste it down here, and add the button. Gonna define the logic later on. So here for the button, gonna add a shape, rounded corner shape, 5 dp, and there's the on click, and then there is a modifier fill max width, and enabled. Basically, this button is to check if some properties do not match, then the button would not be clickable by the user. And in this case, if no checkbox is checked, the button should be disabled. So let's set that up. So has or is upper, is lower, is custom, is numeric, and in parallel we need to check the password size. So here password size is not empty, and the password size dot to end has to be greater than 0. Alright, so now we'll just need to add the button text here. Let's add a text and string resource dot string dot generate. Alright, that should add the text and make this button disabled. It has to be enabled now because there's 2 elements that are checked. Let's run our application, see the results. Alright, so there's our application here. We can check those, and we unchecked everything. There's the generator is disabled. Let's check those back. And yeah, what's left now is to generate the logic, or set up the logic to generate the password based on what we have defined here. So in the next video, we will set up the logic for the generate button and for the copy button to be able to generate our password and copy to the clipboard. If you have any questions, feel free to share them in the comment section, and I'll catch you in the next one.